Welcome to InfoStream, your daily current. Unsure what to listen to? Turn to us for today's headlines. Stay informed. Trump's Greenland demands fuel NATO tensions. Rising tensions involve Trump's demands for U.S. control of Greenland. Iran executions spark international outcry. Protests and international responses intensify regarding Iranian executions. U.S. immigration crackdown disrupts visa processing. The U.S. suspends immigrant visa processing for 75 countries. U.S. considers private security for Venezuelan oil. The U.S. is evaluating private security options for Venezuelan assets. Gaza peace plan begins Phase 2. The U.S. announces the start of Phase 2 of the Gaza peace plan. Trump imposes tariffs on advanced chips. A 25% tariff is placed on advanced chips with a strategic exemption. Ukraine faces energy emergency. Continued Russian strikes and cold weather trigger an energy emergency in Ukraine. U.S.-UK presence reduced in Qatar. Military personnel are reducing their presence in Qatar due to regional tensions. Somalia-UAE diplomatic dispute escalates. A diplomatic row deepens between Somalia and the UAE. Aung San Suu Kyi remains a key figure in Myanmar. Suu Kyi's influence persists despite ongoing challenges in Myanmar. Taliban divisions threaten stability. Internal divisions within the Taliban pose a risk to stability. Pritam Singh loses title following conviction. Singapore's opposition leader is stripped of his title due to a lying conviction. Uganda prepares for 2026 elections with key challenges. Significant concerns and challenges are anticipated ahead of the 2026 Ugandan elections. Thaksin Shinawatра's parole expected in May. Parole for Thaksin Shinawatra is anticipated in May. Political parties address cannabis reclassification and tourism. Parties are addressing cannabis reclassification and tourism concerns. Donald Trump's escalating rhetoric regarding Greenland, coupled with increased military deployments by NATO allies, has created a volatile situation demanding careful attention. The core issue revolves around Trump's persistent demands for U.S. control of Greenland, dismissing any alternative as unacceptable, and the subsequent reactions from Denmark, NATO, and other nations. The situation is characterized by heightened tensions and uncertainty surrounding the future of transatlantic security and international relations. Recent news reports highlight a significant shift in global dynamics. Denmark, recognizing the gravity of the situation, is actively bolstering its defenses in Greenland, supported by joint exercises with NATO partners. Germany, Sweden, France, Norway, the Netherlands, and Finland have all dispatched military personnel to Greenland, signaling a united front against perceived threats. These deployments are not merely symbolic, they represent a tangible demonstration of solidarity and a commitment to safeguarding Greenland's sovereignty. Simultaneously, Trump's insistence on U.S. control has prompted a series of meetings and discussions between U.S. officials and Danish counterparts. While these engagements have yielded limited concrete results, they underscore the ongoing dialogue and attempts to find a mutually acceptable path forward. The core disagreement remains Denmark's steadfast commitment to Greenland's independence versus Trump's unwavering demands. Furthermore, the international community is closely monitoring the situation, with concerns growing about the potential destabilizing effects of Trump's actions. Several nations have publicly condemned his rhetoric and urged him to reconsider his approach. Canada has reiterated its support for Denmark and Greenland's sovereignty, while France has strongly urged the U.S. to cease its threats. The formation of a high-level working group between the U.S. and Denmark suggests a willingness to explore potential avenues for dialogue, though the fundamental differences in perspective remain a significant obstacle. The ongoing military deployments and diplomatic efforts represent a critical juncture in international relations, with potentially far-reaching consequences for global security and stability. The next few weeks will be crucial in determining the trajectory of this complex and rapidly evolving situation. Trump warns against Iranian executions as protests and international response intensify. Recent news reports detail a rapidly escalating crisis in Iran, centered around widespread anti-government protests and a corresponding international response led by President Donald Trump. The protests, triggered by the death of Mahsa Amini, a young woman arrested for violating Iran's restrictive dress code, have resulted in over 400 deaths, according to estimates. International pressure has mounted, primarily through Trump's warnings against executing protesters and threats of strong action. The United States has taken several immediate steps, including urging personnel at its largest military base in Qatar to depart as a precaution. Trump has specifically advised all U.S. citizens in Iran to leave immediately. Simultaneously, the U.S. State Department is actively monitoring the situation, with officials closely observing the unfolding events. Globally, numerous countries are issuing travel advisories, urging their citizens to avoid travel to Iran or to depart immediately. The United Kingdom has temporarily closed its embassy in Tehran and withdrawn all staff. Germany has advised airlines to avoid Iranian airspace due to concerns about potential anti-aviation weaponry. Spain has similarly advised its citizens to leave Iran using any available means. Several other nations, including Italy, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and India, have issued similar warnings and are taking protective measures for their personnel stationed in the region. The protests themselves continue, fueled by deep-seated grievances and a desire for fundamental change. The international community is grappling with how to respond effectively, balancing the need to support the Iranian people with the risk of further destabilizing the country. The situation remains highly volatile, with the potential for further escalation. The focus remains on preventing further loss of life and facilitating a peaceful resolution to the ongoing crisis. U.S. suspends immigrant visa processing for 75 countries amidst immigration crackdown. The United States government is implementing a significant expansion of its immigration enforcement policies by indefinitely suspending immigrant visa processing for 75 countries. This decision, announced by the State Department, targets countries including Brazil, Colombia, Egypt, Haiti, Somalia, and Russia, reflecting a broader strategy to restrict immigration. The suspension applies specifically to immigrant visas, encompassing those for employment and family reunification within the United States. Notably, it does not affect non-immigrant visas, such as those for tourism or student travel, including those for the upcoming World Cup. The move is rooted in the State Department's increased scrutiny of potential immigrants under the public charge provision of immigration law. This provision aims to identify individuals deemed likely to become a burden on public resources, effectively discouraging immigration from those perceived as potentially reliant on government assistance. The decision follows a pattern of heightened immigration enforcement actions initiated under the Trump administration. The 75 countries affected represent a diverse range of nations, many of which were already included in previous iterations of the administration's travel ban. The suspension underscores a continued focus on controlling immigration flows and aligns with previous efforts to limit access to the United States for individuals deemed a potential strain on public resources. The decision highlights the ongoing debate surrounding immigration policy within the United States and the administration's commitment to prioritizing enforcement measures. The expansion of the public charge provision, combined with the visa processing suspension, represents a substantial step in the administration's broader strategy to manage immigration levels. U.S. considers private security for Venezuelan oil assets. Recent news reports detail the evolving strategy surrounding the U.S. government's approach to Venezuela, primarily focusing on securing the nation's substantial oil reserves. The core issue revolves around the potential for U.S. oil companies to resume operations amidst ongoing political instability and security risks. A key element of this strategy involves deploying private military contractors to safeguard Chevron's assets and prevent illicit oil exports to adversaries like Russia, China, Iran, and Cuba. The immediate priority is to contain the flow of oil that could fuel these nations' operations. This necessitates establishing a robust security presence to protect infrastructure and deter criminal activity, particularly targeting the drug trafficking routes controlled by groups such as the FAR and ELN. The volatile security landscape, characterized by armed militias, collectivos, and the potential for retaliation from these groups, has prompted a cautious approach from major oil companies. Chevron, in particular, has expressed reservations, leading to a hesitancy to fully commit to operations. The U.S. government is exploring the use of private security firms, potentially including Grable Rescue Foundation, known for its assistance to opposition leader Maria Corina Machado, and possibly even Blackwater, given the historical precedent of private contractors in similar situations. The potential involvement of Chinese companies operating in Venezuela has also been noted, highlighting the broader geopolitical implications. Security analysts emphasize the precarious nature of the situation, with U.S. oil assets becoming a potential target for retaliation. The reliance on private security underscores the lack of confidence in the current Venezuelan military's ability to provide adequate protection. The U.S. government is weighing the risks against the strategic importance of controlling Venezuela's oil reserves. The deployment of private contractors is seen as a temporary measure until a more stable political environment can be established. U.S. announces start of Phase 2 of Gaza peace plan. The United States has initiated Phase 2 of President Donald Trump's Gaza peace plan, focusing on demilitarization, technocratic governance, and reconstruction of the territory. This second phase involves the establishment of a Palestinian Technocratic Committee to administer Gaza NCAG, headed by Ali Shath, a former Palestinian Authority deputy planning minister, and overseen by a Trump-led board of peace. The committee's formation follows a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas, established in October, which included a hostage prisoner exchange and a partial Israeli withdrawal. However, significant obstacles remain, including Hamas's refusal to relinquish weapons. Without an independent Palestinian state, Israel's continued occupation and refusal to fully withdraw, and the fragile nature of the ceasefire, the U.S. expects Hamas to fully comply with its obligations, including the immediate return of the final deceased Israeli hostage, Ran Vili, whose remains are still held in Gaza. Efforts to locate Giveli's body are ongoing, with multiple potential sites identified. The NCAG is tasked with managing daily governance until a reformed Palestinian Authority can assume control, a prospect vehemently opposed by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who insists on preventing Palestinian Authority involvement. The Board of Peace, also to be comprised of selected international figures, will oversee the NCAG. Invitations to join the board have been extended to numerous countries, with President Trump personally selecting members. Nikolay Mladenov, a former UN Middle East envoy, is expected to lead the panel. Israel effectively holds veto power over committee membership, demanding no Hamas or Palestinian Authority representatives be involved. Despite these challenges, the U.S. remains optimistic, believing that a very good channel of communication exists and that parties will uphold their commitments. The International Stabilization Force, ISF, intended to support a Palestinian police force and facilitate Israeli withdrawal, faces difficulty securing commitments from other nations. The NCAG's primary goal is to alleviate daily suffering, restore basic services, and facilitate humanitarian access, while ultimately contributing to a credible path to Palestinian self-determination and statehood. The U.S. anticipates announcing the full composition of the Board of Peace in the coming days. The formation of the committee marks a critical, albeit complex, step in the ongoing efforts to achieve a lasting peace in the region. Trump enacts 25% tariff on advanced chips with strategic exemption. President Donald Trump has implemented a 25% tariff on specific advanced computing chips, primarily NVIDIA's H200 and AMD's MI325X, citing national security concerns and leveraging Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962. This move represents a significant escalation in Trump's strategy to bolster domestic technology manufacturing, particularly within the burgeoning artificial intelligence sector. The White House indicated a potential for broader tariffs on semiconductors and their derivatives, signaling a continued focus on securing U.S. leadership in AI. A key component of this policy involves strategic exemptions for chips destined to support the development of the U.S. technological supply chain. The criteria for qualifying for this exemption remain undefined, with the White House yet to provide detailed information. This approach reflects a previous tactic, where Trump initially threatened 100% levies on chips, contingent upon companies committing to domestic manufacturing. NVIDIA and AMD have responded to the tariff announcement. NVIDIA expressed support for the decision, emphasizing the importance of fostering American chip industry competition and creating high-paying jobs. AMD affirmed its compliance with U.S. export control laws. The situation underscores a long-standing trade dispute between the United States and China, particularly regarding NVIDIA's H200 chip, which is vital for powering AI data centers. Previously, NVIDIA and AMD had agreed to pay 15% of chip sales made in China to the U.S. government, a concession that appears to relate to older chip models. Trump's initial plan to impose 25% chip tariffs by April was delayed, followed by a formal investigation into chip imports. This latest action highlights the complex interplay between trade policy, national security, and technological innovation, placing NVIDIA and AMD at the center of these trade scuffles. The administration's focus on AI and its associated regulatory changes further complicates the landscape, reflecting a broader strategic shift within the Trump administration. Ukraine declares energy emergency amidst continued Russian strikes and cold weather. President Volodymyr Zelensky has declared a state of emergency within Ukraine's energy sector, primarily targeting Kyiv due to ongoing Russian attacks and the persistence of extremely cold weather conditions. The declaration reflects a deliberate strategy by Moscow to exploit the harsh winter, with overnight temperatures in Kyiv recently plummeting to approximately 20 C. This action follows weeks of sustained missile and drone strikes that have left a significant portion of the capital without electricity, heating, and running water. Donald Trump, the U.S. counterpart to Zelensky, has expressed skepticism regarding the possibility of a swift peace deal with Russia, stating that Zelensky is currently less ready to make a deal than Vladimir Putin. This assessment has garnered tacit approval from the Kremlin. Dmitry Peskov, a Kremlin spokesman, confirmed the Russian side's openness to continued negotiations. The situation in Kyiv is particularly dire, with approximately 70% of the city experiencing prolonged power outages following a recent, intense barrage of attacks. In response, Zelensky has established a 24-hour task force dedicated to repairing damage caused by the strikes and adverse weather. This task force will secure vital energy equipment and resources internationally to replace damaged infrastructure. Furthermore, the Ukrainian government is expanding emergency help points throughout Kyiv to provide heat and power to residents. This initiative could lead to a relaxation of the existing midnight curfew. The American and Ukrainian leaders are scheduled to attend the World Economic Forum in Switzerland next week, although formal meetings between them are not currently planned. The ongoing conflict and the deliberate targeting of Ukraine's energy infrastructure remain a central concern, with the potential for further disruption and hardship for the Ukrainian population. The situation underscores the complexities of the negotiations and the continued intensity of the war. US and UK military personnel reducing presence in Qatar amid regional tensions. Amid escalating tensions in the Middle East, the United States and the United Kingdom are reducing their military personnel presence at the Al Udeid air base in Qatar. This move, described as a precautionary measure, follows US President Donald Trump's warnings regarding potential action against Iran over the crackdown on anti-government protests. Approximately 10,000 personnel are based at Al Udeid, including around 100 UK staff, though the exact number departing remains unclear. The Qatari government stated that the U.S. measures are a response to regional tensions, prioritizing the security of its citizens and critical infrastructure. Following the closure of the British embassy in Tehran, operating remotely, the U.S. embassy in Doha advises personnel to exercise increased caution and limit non-essential travel to the base. Simultaneously, the U.S. mission to Saudi Arabia advises similar precautions. Iran's airspace was initially closed for 2 hours before being extended to 0800 local time, prompting airlines like Air India and Lufthansa to reroute flights, leading to potential delays and cancellations. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi warned against repeating past failed experiences, referencing a potential U.S. attack. Iran also announced that hanging was out of the question regarding a death sentence. The situation has prompted travel advisories from Italy and Poland urging citizens to leave Iran. The U.S. has heightened security measures, particularly around military installations. The reduction in personnel reflects heightened concerns about potential conflict and the ongoing instability in the region. The U.S. administration is closely monitoring the situation, while Iran maintains its stance and readiness to retaliate if attacked. The overall impact is a significant reduction in Western military presence at a strategically important base. Somalia-UAE diplomatic row deepens amidst geopolitical shifts. A significant deterioration in diplomatic relations between Somalia and the United Arab Emirates. A UAE is unfolding, fueled primarily by Israel's recognition of Somaliland and escalating tensions in Yemen. The core of the dispute centers on Somalia's perception of the UAE's role in undermining its sovereignty and supporting a breakaway region. Initially a key partner in Somalia's security, economy, and politics, particularly due to its strategic maritime access, the UAE's relationship with the federal government has fractured dramatically. Following Israel's recognition of Somaliland in late December, Somalia swiftly canceled all port management and security cooperation agreements with the UAE, accusing it of interference. This decision was precipitated by concerns surrounding the UAE's potential support for a separatist agreement involving Somaliland and Ethiopia, as well as allegations that the UAE facilitated the movement of Yemen's separatist leader, Idris al-Zubaydi, via Somalia's airspace and territory. These actions, coupled with the ongoing conflict in Yemen and the involvement of the Southern Transitional Council, have severely strained relations. DP World, a major logistics company operating in Berbera Port, remains unperturbed, stating its operations will continue. However, Somaliland and Jubaland have both declared the federal government's decision null and void, highlighting the deep divisions within Somalia itself. While Somalia retains some leverage through control of its airspace and diplomatic pressure, analysts believe trust has been irrevocably lost. The situation is further complicated by shifting regional dynamics, with the UAE and Israel forming a geopolitical bloc against Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and other regional actors. The UAE's evacuation of security personnel and equipment from Bosaso underscores the urgency of the situation. Despite Somalia's limited capacity to fully enforce its decisions, it is likely to rally support from allies like Turkey and Saudi Arabia to maintain its position and potentially influence future relations. The long-term implications of this diplomatic rupture remain uncertain, but it signals a significant realignment of power and influence in the Horn of Africa. Aung San Suu Kyi's enduring shadow over Myanmar. Aung San Suu Kyi, detained since the 2021 military coup, continues to exert a significant influence on Myanmar despite her imprisonment. As of Wednesday, she has been detained for a total of 20 years, 5 of which have been since the coup. Despite uncertainty surrounding her health and conditions, her continued presence remains a focal point for calls for her release and an end to the ongoing civil war. The military junta's attempts to erase her image have proven unsuccessful, highlighting her enduring popularity. The situation echoes a 2010 scenario where a manipulated election, dismissed internationally as a sham, led to Suu Kyi's release and subsequent rise to power. Following the 2010 election, a period of engagement with UN envoys and international actors aimed to improve Myanmar's image and reduce sanctions. However, the military's constitution, guaranteeing a quarter of parliament to the armed forces, ultimately limited Suu Kyi's influence. The 2015 election saw Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy (NLD) win, but the USDP, United Solidarity Party, performed even worse, indicating a shift in public sentiment. Despite initial high hopes, the NLD administration faced disappointment, yet many still preferred it to the military's party. This presented a potential opportunity for Suu Kyi to amend the constitution and diminish the military's power. However, the 2021 coup, orchestrated by Min Aung Hlaing, dramatically altered the trajectory. The shocking violence against protesters, coupled with the hardening of attitudes on both sides, has fueled a protracted civil war. Tens of thousands have been killed, and countless homes destroyed, with young Burmese increasingly taking up arms. The current situation is markedly different from 2010, lacking any prospect of compromise, and with no reformers within the military's ranks. The situation is significantly more dire, with a profound loss of life and widespread destruction. Taliban internal divisions threaten stability amidst shifting power dynamics. A significant rift within the Taliban leadership, revealed through a leaked 2025 audio recording and subsequently confirmed by actions, poses a serious challenge to the stability of the Islamic Emirate. The core of the issue centers on a growing divide between the Kandahar-aligned faction, led by figures like Sirajuddin Haqqani and Baradar, and the supreme leader, Mullah Hibatullah Akhundzada. This division manifested dramatically when the Taliban abruptly shut down internet access across the country in late September 2025, a move directly opposed by the Kabul-based leadership. The subsequent reversal of the internet shutdown, orchestrated by the Kabul group's ministers, signaled a willingness to openly challenge Akhundzada's authority. This action, driven by the recognition of the Internet's crucial role in governance and commerce, highlighted a fundamental difference in priorities. Several incidents further underscored the internal tensions, including public criticisms of Akhundzada's policies regarding girls' education and the detention of officials who questioned his leadership. These actions, coupled with Haqqani's outspoken warnings against abandoning the nation's trust, demonstrated a growing willingness to defy the supreme leader. Despite repeated denials from Taliban spokesman Zabiullah Mujahid, the evidence pointed to a genuine power struggle within the Emirate's top tier. The shift in Haqqani's public image from a militant figure to a potential statesman, and his subsequent remarks added another layer to the complexity. Ultimately, the internal divisions, while not yet resulting in a formal split, represent a critical test for the Taliban's ability to maintain control and navigate the challenges facing Afghanistan. The future stability of the Emirate hinges on whether these factions can find a way to reconcile their differences, or if the internal conflict will ultimately undermine the Taliban's authority. Pritam Singh, Singapore's opposition leader, stripped of title following lying conviction. Singapore's leader of the opposition, Pritam Singh, has been removed from his position following a parliamentary vote and a subsequent conviction for lying under oath to a parliamentary committee. The move, announced by Prime Minister Lawrence Wong, marks a significant development in Singapore's political landscape, dominated by the ruling People's Action Party, PAP. Singh, a prominent figure within the Workers' Party, WP, was the first person to hold the title of Leader of the Opposition, a role established in 2020. His conviction, stemming from his actions during an inquiry, triggered the vote, which overwhelmingly supported the resolution stating his conduct was dishonorable and unbecoming. Prior to the vote, Singh had consistently maintained his innocence regarding the accusations. He remains a member of parliament and the Secretary General of the WP, which currently holds 12 seats in the 108-seat parliament. The incident highlights a key tension within Singapore's political system, with critics alleging the government utilizes the judiciary to target political opponents, a claim the authorities deny. The parliamentary debate centered on the erosion of trust between the public and parliament, with Indranee Rajah, the leader of the House, emphasizing the seriousness of Singh's actions. Singh defended himself, asserting his conscience remains clear and rejecting the debate's conclusions. Following the vote, Prime Minister Aung invited the WP to nominate another MP for the role. The Workers' Party will conduct an internal review to determine if Singh violated their own rules. The party's response, conveyed through the single word, "Fay we continue," indicates their determination to continue their work as MPs. This removal represents a pivotal moment, potentially impacting the opposition's ability to scrutinize the government's actions. The situation underscores the delicate balance of power within Singapore's political system. Uganda election 2026 key challenges and concerns ahead of polls. The upcoming Ugandan presidential election, pitting incumbent Yoweri Museveni against Bobi Wine, is facing significant logistical and security challenges, underscored by delays in voting, internet shutdowns, and threats against electoral officials. Approximately 21.6 million Ugandans are registered to vote in an election marked by concerns about fairness and potential manipulation. Voting delays, attributed to malfunctioning biometric identification kits and equipment shortages, have frustrated voters across the country, including in Kampala and the western Mbarara region. Museveni, seeking a seventh consecutive term at age 81, acknowledged experiencing difficulties with the voting machines, while Bobi Wine, a 43-year-old pop star turned politician, has accused the electoral agency of widespread irregularities and alleged arrests of his agents. The internet was suspended on Tuesday, with authorities citing concerns about misinformation, fraud, and inciting violence. This action has been widely criticized by UN human rights offices and Wine's camp, who believe it's an attempt to suppress opposition activity and prevent the verification of election results. The National Unity Platform, NUP, has responded with a vote monitoring app, BitChat, utilizing Bluetooth technology to share voting data offline, circumventing the internet shutdown. Electoral Chief Simon Bayabakama has faced threats, including a recorded video of a presidential assistant stating he would never declare Bobi Wine as president. Despite these threats, Bayabakama insists the outcome will be determined solely by the will of the voters and the country's laws, which require a candidate to secure more than 50% of the votes cast to win. Security concerns are elevated with a heavy military presence and reports of polling stations located within military premises, prompting investigations by the Electoral Commission. The election is largely defined by a generational divide, with Museveni representing the established order and Wine embodying a desire for change among younger voters. Economic issues, particularly youth unemployment, are a key concern for voters. The campaign period has been marred by disruptions to opposition activities, including arrests and the breaking up of rallies. The election's fairness is under scrutiny, with international observers and opposition figures raising concerns about potential intimidation and manipulation. The Electoral Commission aims to declare the results within 48 hours of the close of polling, following established legal procedures. Thaksin Shinawatra, expected to be paroled in May. Former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra is anticipated to receive a parole hearing in May, following the completion of two-thirds of his one-year prison sentence. This development follows a visit by his family and significant media attention. The Department of Corrections confirmed that inmate classification reviews occur 4 times annually, considering factors like conduct, participation in public service, and time served. Thaksin's case, involving charges of abuse of authority and conflict of interest, has been ongoing since his return to Thailand in August 2023, after over 15 years of self-exile. Initially sentenced to 8 years, the sentence was later reduced to 1 year due to royal clemency. He was initially held at Bangkok Remand Prison before being transferred to Police General Hospital shortly after his incarceration. The Supreme Court did not recognize his prolonged stay at the hospital as serving prison time. The parole determination hinges on meeting the criteria of having served two-thirds of his sentence, approximately 8 months. Given his current status, Thaksin is expected to qualify for parole in May. The Department of Corrections conducts these reviews in March, April, August, and December. During the visit, Thaksin expressed good spirits and conveyed encouragement to few Thai party candidates contesting the February 8 general election. He also extended condolences regarding the tragic crane collapse in Nakhon Ratchasima, resulting in 32 fatalities. While discussions about construction standards and transport infrastructure were not detailed, Thaksin emphasized the importance of preventing such accidents. Thaksin, aged 76, has been incarcerated at Klong Pram Central Prison since September 9, 2023. The family's presence and the ongoing media coverage highlight the continued public interest in his case and the potential for his release. The Department of Corrections source emphasized that Thaksin's case was not a major concern, as he met the general parole criteria. The timeline for the parole hearing is set for May, contingent on the fulfillment of the required criteria. Political parties pledge cannabis reclassification, address tourism concerns, Thailand's upcoming general election has seen a unified stance from three major political parties, the People's Party, Democrat, and Pheu Thai regarding cannabis. They all agree on reclassifying cannabis as a narcotic, permitting its use solely for medical purposes, aiming to mitigate public health concerns. This decision reflects international pressure, particularly from Europe, where lawmakers are voicing concerns about unregulated cannabis use. Key figures, including People's Party candidate Sitaful Vabunthanakel and Pheu Thai candidate Surakiat Thianthong, have reiterated this commitment to medical-only access. Beyond cannabis, the forum highlighted significant challenges facing Thailand's tourism sector. The Thai Hotels Association, TA, and the Association of Thai Travel Agents, ATA, voiced concerns about unfair competition from unregistered businesses, specifically illegal condos and online accommodations, which operate without regulatory oversight. These businesses often leverage high commission rates, 20–30% charged by global online travel agents, significantly exceeding rates in Europe, impacting the competitiveness of legitimate Thai hotels. Addressing this issue, the People's Party plans to implement preventive measures to block foreign businesses from registering, targeting legal or accounting consultants who frequently act as nominees. Surveillance will run concurrently with establishing complaint channels for operators to identify and report violations, creating pressure for stricter enforcement. If nominee businesses are found guilty, the government intends to seize their assets to prevent further expansion and exploitation of local operators. Furthermore, the parties recognize the weakness in law enforcement as a critical obstacle to tourism. The ATA president emphasized the need for stronger enforcement to combat gray and nominee businesses. The Democrat Party proposes a super act to modernize outdated legislation, streamlining regulations, and strengthening the government's role in supporting the private sector. The parties collectively aim to tackle these issues within the first 100 days of taking office, encompassing not only gray businesses, but also state officials involved in facilitating illicit activities. This coordinated approach reflects a prioritization of public health, economic competitiveness, and sustainable tourism development within Thailand.